Good morning, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing. We wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. Had an incident today that reminded me how privileged I am. And I'm actually looking at places where people are not so lucky. And it was the funniest thing. I wanted to shave today, but my beard hadn't quite grown in, so I decided to make the decision, let everybody else go to bed, that way I have my sweet time to play around with it. And then I got into the shower to clean myself, because I've been doing things all day, so yeah, I'm hot and I'm sweaty and probably disgusting. And just as that wonderful shampoo was starting to drip down my eyelids and into my eyes, we all know that sensation. Not pleasant. Well, I'm sure somebody out there finds it pleasant, but that's not my issue. That moment, a rap, rap, rap came at my door. There was somebody knocking. Now, my house is not brand new, so I waited for a minute, and sure enough, it comes again. So I turned the water off, completely blind, and knowing that if I pop my eyelids a little bit, I'm going to have trouble. And I'm just hoping there, who is it? Just like every dumbass that was ever in a horror movie. Who is it? It's Bob Barker. Come on down. But anyways, as it turned out, it was my little girl. She needed to go to the bathroom. Quite naturally, every person, when they've been asleep for an hour or two and the urge strikes, they need to do it right away. Well, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, first of all, I have no underwear, just my towel. Secondly, my eyes are burning. It's going to take me a minute or two to flush that out. And I don't know what she's talking about. A number one, a number two, a number three. I don't know if there is a number three, but let's just say it exists. So I thought about it for a second, and then I executed my privilege. My brother-in-law is staying with me for a little while, and he has his own apartment set up. Well, I set it up. He's modified it to his taste from there. I said, go down to your uncle's. Because like I said, I couldn't figure out the logistics of standing in the hall with burning eyes and trying to figure out how long she was going to be there. She did. And that's when I realized I'm lucky to live in a house with two bathrooms. For those of you that have been around for a while, you might recall a lot of my commentary in 2020 during the pandemic was about those souls who, I'm going to say, lived in apartments, because condos are an entirely different breed than apartments. Most of the apartments I have seen in my life have a single bathroom in them. And if you told me you had an apartment, I would expect to see a single bathroom in it. And there's three of us that use this particular bathroom. Like I said, my brother-in-law has one, but you're running through the house, everything else, and you never know. Maybe he's using that one too. It's still a privilege so many people don't have. Now, as I said, this recalls a lot of my podcasts in the 2020s. What do those people do? Because they wouldn't have the option I had, and I'd be standing out with, well, the heaters are on, so it's not exactly cold air, but after you get out of a nice warm shower, the outside air is not nice. The water on the floor would have been extreme, because even though Silverlight likes to keep his hair high and tight, there's a lot of places on the body where water pools. And if I was going to take the time to get out and dry myself and do everything else, she might as well have gone outside. Well, no, it's too late at night for that, and no child deserves that. It's like 6 degrees, snow is melting. Yeah, not. In an emergency, sometimes maybe, but this was not the night. Going back to the people who are living in these condos and stuff like that, they're, let's go with apartments. Like I said, condos are kind of their own animal. Every day, and maybe this is a description of your life, they got to go up and down the elevators, carrying heavy backpacks for school, heavy bags for shopping. It's not a fun thing. But that's their daily life. And I've lived, I'll be honest, I lived on the fifth floor in one place, and in Halifax, I lived on the ground floor. The ground floor, I like that, the ground floor. But I also lived on, I think it was the third, yeah, it was the third floor. And there was no elevator, and that was simply because my spouse at the time didn't like the idea of living on the ground floor because people can look in. And I'm like, we buy curtains. It's no problem. But, of course, when a woman is not feeling secure, you got to give in and you got to say, okay. So many privileges. I don't want to be bothered. I go to the second floor, turn on my cameras, and I'm in fortress mode. Nothing can interact with me unless I give it permission. Whereas, for those of us that grew up with kids of the 70s, 80s, and even the 90s, there's all sorts of ways to mess with somebody. Nicky Nicky Nine Doors is almost not a challenge in an apartment, because you just click a bunch of buttons and run like hell. Nowadays, well, you wouldn't dare do it because there's surveillance everywhere. Even if there isn't, there's going to be a fake camera or some sort of relic system left over from goodness knows when. Some of those things are darn bulletproof. But that's the thing. I can go out and spit in my front yard, do whatever I feel like, and I don't have to clear it past any tenancy board or condo board or HOA, nothing like that. And that's rare. I have a feeling it's going to get less rare. There are some people that really like the idea of an HOA, that really like the idea of a tenants association. They like it because they think they can find power through it. Remember what I said the other day? Only fools seek power, basically. Others are relieved to have it taken from them. I'm in the latter category. Although I would fight for something I believe in, I'm just not interested in having anything to do. I'm lucky that my neighbors are great. And, well, sooner or later they're all going to move along for various reasons. But it's not like in a rental apartment where they can be moving every 6 months, even less depending on how their lease is worded. Whereas I don't have that hanging over my head. I got a mortgage and hundreds of $1,000s worth of debt. Wow, a little more than 100. It still doesn't feel very comforting. And with that comes the privilege. Being able to make modifications to your own area is really underrated. Yes, you can put furniture up and make an apartment nice, and I've seen some lovely apartments, lovely condos, but they're a different animal. Whereas a house, you can do anything you like. I once worked security in an area downtown that had a residential apartment. And it was an apartment, but they were luxury apartments attached to it. The scary part that I still cannot figure out, we had 4 penthouses. One guy rented 2 of them, and we rented 2 other ones. He always told us one was for his business, one was for his residence, which makes sense. Now, even though this was mid-90s, we did have a fairly extensive security system. This fellow, I'm not saying that to insult him, just fellow, managed to tear down the wall between his so-called business and so-called residential apartments, make it into one gigantic place. It was stunning when he moved out. I'm so glad that he moved out while I was there because I wouldn't have believed it. And I mean, when I mean tear down the wall, I'm talking like, you know, the Berlin Wall, completely trashed it, took it out, put in new frames, put everything. It probably would have been up to code if they had inspected it. The only problem was he hadn't told management, or at least there was no record of him ever telling management. And he was rich enough to say, bill me. And he wasn't saying that, bill me and try to collect. He was just like, bill me. Whatever the cost is, I'll put it back up. Nobody filed a noise complaint, even though I know personally breaking down a wall is pretty loud and pretty, you got to haul all that garbage and waste out somewhere. Not even an object for him. I don't know whether he just hired lots of workers and tried to get it done in one day. But even then, you'd look at the garbage and say, hey, there's girders in here. We might want to be worried about that. But like I said, fortunately, he was business savvy enough to know what he could do and how he could do it. So they named a price, he paid it, and he was gone. Didn't even care. But that's because he was so successful in his business. I forget what he did. I remember I kept thinking, I think it was real estate or something, because I kept remembering, why are you living? Yes, these are very nice apartments, and they're conveniently located to absolutely everything in the world. But like, you're at that time it was worth, somewhere between 10 and 100 million. You can buy a building like this and live off of it while, you live for free. I guess that's what he did eventually. I know that was one of the other penthouse people. They did run a real estate business and were incredibly successful, but they just hated driving. But I got a lot closer to them than this other fella. But you see, privileged. He could knock down a wall, whereas if you and I were sitting in an apartment somewhere, we knocked down a wall. First of all, I can imagine the noise complaints. Secondly, like I said, getting rid of the garbage. And then, when you build it up again, that's more noise complaints, that's more packaging, more products. It's just unheard of. So whether you have one bathroom, 3 bathrooms, 100 bathrooms, it is limiting what you can do. It's hard to split time. Like I said, I usually do my bathing activities sometime in the afternoon, because that way I know everybody's out of the house and you're not draining anybody's hot water. Today my plan didn't work out so well, but it's a once in a lifetime thing. I'll be able to deal with it. But be thankful you have that bathroom. It was about 100 years ago my grandfather put indoor plumbing into his house, and people thought he was insane. What about the swamp gas? What are you going to do about that? People had no concept of an indoor toilet. And now, life is unthinkable without one. And in just 100 years, well, possibly the 80s, but between the 80s and 100, I'm not exactly sure when that took place. I just know it was in that time frame. Count your blessings. Be grateful. This is not intended to be, check your privilege. That's not supposed to be it. It's just whether you got 1 or 100, we're all human. We all got to do the same thing. With that, we hope you enjoyed this episode of the Silverlight Show. If you did, please like, share, because sharing is caring. Don't forget to click the subscribe button if you are not currently subscribed. Click the button down below over the bell so that way you can stay informed each and every time we upload an episode. And we hope you have a fantastic day.